Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our coverage of the latest mission from Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. I'm Will Robinson Smith, be providing our commentary for the duration of this coverage. We're broadcasting from the Spaceflight Now News Bureau at NASA's Kennedy Space Center. Joining you for a second time today, coming up after the successful launch and beginning of NASA's Psyche mission to a metal-rich asteroid of the same name that went off this morning. So for those of you who joined us for that Falcon Heavy live coverage, welcome back. If you're joining us for the first time today, hope you've had an excellent week. Let's go ahead and kick off your weekend with a Falcon 9 launch. Joined this evening by Stephen Young, who is running the technical aspects of the show and helping out with some of our social media. Adam Bernstein doing the hard work out there, running our tracking cameras and making sure all these shots are coming to you live. The center of your screen, you're taking a look at Space Launch Complex 40, Slick 40, where the next Falcon 9 rocket has been patiently waiting to launch the Starlink 6-22 mission. This will be the 26th dedicated mission launching SpaceX's upgraded Starlink V2 mini satellites. For those of you who may have been watching earlier in the week, this is actually SpaceX's second attempt to launch this mission. They had to scrub back on the first attempt over the weekend because of high upper level winds, so they called a hold at T-minus 23 seconds. But now with weather improving for tonight, SpaceX is targeting a T0 liftoff of 7:01 p.m. Eastern Time for our viewers joining around the world. That is 23:01 UTC. We're now T-minus 42 minutes, 30 seconds and counting. If you'd like to help support our coverage of the space program, there's a quick and easy way to do that. If you just hit the like button down below the video and click subscribe, ring that notification bell. That way you get a little ping on your phone whenever new videos are posted, and of course, you don't miss any of our live streams. Sharing the stream is also a big help, and of course, we can't do these broadcasts without the support of our viewers like you, as well as our channel members. So we'd like to thank folks like Rick Donner, who has just joined us at the launch director level. Really appreciate you helping support our coverage there, Rick. Rick, along with our other channel members, has access to 4K views of all of our launches from here on the Space Coast, as well as access to member-only videos and discounts at our online shop. That is shop.spaceflightnow.com. T-minus 41 minutes, 12 seconds and counting. We're just about 3 or so minutes away from the point at which the SpaceX launch director would verify the go for propellant load. Unlike the Psyche mission earlier today, which was also a NASA mission, SpaceX is not broadcasting the mission control audio for its own Starlink missions, so we're not going to be hearing those callouts like we did this morning. But rest assured, we're keeping close tabs on the process of fueling. We'll keep you posted on how things are progressing as SpaceX looks to send this rocket up at 7:01 p.m. Eastern Time. That is 23:01 UTC. If for whatever reason they need to look at an additional backup opportunity within this window, they do have 5 additional slots running from 7:51 p.m. until 10:29 Eastern Time tonight. And should they need it, if none of that works out today, they do have 5 more backup chances during a launch window tomorrow, Saturday the 14th, starting at 6:36 p.m., running until 10:29 p.m. Eastern. Taking a look at the weather for tonight, a little bit of our wider view here. Coming into the attempt, the 45th Weather Squadron forecast 60% favorable weather for liftoff at the opening of this window. It improves to 80% favorable by the end of the window tonight. The view's looking pretty idyllic for a sunset liftoff of this Falcon 9 rocket, which would be certainly a treat. The last time we had a daylight launch of a Falcon 9 rocket, well, you have to go all the way back to July 1st of this year, when SpaceX launched the Euclid mission on behalf of the European Space Agency. So it's been quite a long time since we've seen the Falcon 9 soar with some daylight on it. We'll see if they're able to make that happen. T-minus 38 minutes, 48 seconds and counting. Again, less than a minute until the launch director would verify the go for the start of propellant load. A couple minutes later, T-minus 35 minutes is when that fueling process would begin. T-minus 37 minutes, 20 seconds and counting. As we are past the point in which the launch director will have taken that poll, let's go ahead and take a look at the countdown timeline for this mission, keeping our eyes on the Falcon 9 rocket there on the right-hand side of your screen. Be watching toward the bottom of the rocket in that first stage for signs of a little bit of frost forming a ring there. That'll be an indication that fueling is in fact underway and that SpaceX is committing to the 7:01 liftoff time. Again, as we mentioned, T-minus 38 minutes was when that poll result came out. The fueling process starts, though, at T-minus 35 minutes when kerosene, or RP-1, will be loaded onto both the first and second stages of the Falcon 9 rocket. At the same time, liquid oxygen, or LOX, will also start flowing aboard the first stage. Then at T-minus 16 minutes, second stage liquid oxygen fueling will begin. Before that, though, we'll see the so-called big vent from the strong back at the launch pad as the feed lines are chilled. That'll come up at about 20 minutes, 20 seconds to liftoff. T-minus 7 minutes, the chill down of the 9 Merlin engines gets underway. It involves flowing a small amount of liquid oxygen through the plumbing and the turbo pumps, and it helps protect the engines from the risk of thermal shock and damage during the start-up sequence. About 6 minutes before liftoff, the first stage kerosene tanks will be full. T-minus 4.5 minutes, we'll see the strong back retract begin. Start with the clamp arms underneath the payload fairings opening, and then it will recline to an angle of about 1.5 degrees, leaning away from the Falcon 9 rocket, staying in that position until liftoff, at which point the strong back will pull back in a much more rapid fashion, clearing the way for the Falcon 9 to leap off the pad. T-minus 2 minutes, liquid oxygen should be fully loaded onto the vehicle, at which point the Falcon 9 will be fully fueled with 1 million pounds of propellant. In the final 60 seconds, control of the countdown will be handed over from the ground sequencer to the Falcon 9's onboard flight computers. The propellant tanks will be brought up to flight pressure. 45 seconds out, the launch director will give their go for liftoff. The engine ignition command will be issued at T-minus 3 seconds. And if all 9 Merlin engines are healthy, they will ignite. The flight computer will give the hold down command to release the clamps. The Falcon 9 will lift off. T-minus 0 coming up at 7:01. Now currently T-minus 34 minutes, 30 seconds and counting. About 30 seconds into the point at which the Falcon 9 fueling will be getting underway. Assuming the launch director has in fact given the go for the start of propellant load. So again, we'll keep a close eye at the bottom of the Falcon 9 first stage for that frost rain start form. See a little bit of vapor near the bottom of the rocket. That silver tower structure that you see there just beyond the crane and in front of the transporter erector, that is, or that will be, a crew and cargo access tower, allowing for some of the same functionality of Launch Complex 39A, from which we saw the Falcon Heavy liftoff this morning. Will allow for Dragon missions, both crew and cargo, to be able to launch from Pad 40. So far, SpaceX has stacked 3 of those tower segments. The 4th and final one continues to be under work over at SpaceX's Roberts Road site. Eventually, that'll be brought over and integrated onto this tower and prepared for its first missions. NASA and SpaceX haven't said specifically when they will start using it, but opportunities for that will begin in 2024. Now T-minus 32 minutes, 53 seconds and counting. Taking a look at the live chat real quick, do want to thank a couple of folks for some super chat donations. Mel Roberts Harold with a $10 super chat. Thank you so much, Mel. Glad you could be with us this evening. Says, can't beat watching from the top of the 5th SLS building at Cape Canaveral's Space Force station to watch the Psyche launch. So we'll head to the beach for the cherry on the launch watching Sunday. Back to Chicagoland tomorrow. Sounds like a fun and busy time. Glad you could catch both launches today. I was actually just up in Chicago myself, visiting my old stomping grounds up in Evanston as a Northwestern grad. It's always great to see the campus. T-minus 31 minutes, 57 seconds and counting. Also want to thank Roseanne DeVasto for your $20 super chat. Really appreciate the coverage, or the support of our coverage, Roseanne. Saying thank you for the calm narrative. Perfect to keep informed in the background. Well, glad you enjoy our commentary. Really appreciate your support of it, and for all of those who are joining us live tonight. How about 1,400 of you with us so far? Quick and easy way to help support our coverage is if you could hit the like button. It helps the YouTube algorithm allow more people to find our coverage as we get into the last 31 minutes before a liftoff here. And as you can see, there's a little bit of vapor near the bottom of the Falcon 9 rocket there. Sign that fueling is in fact underway and that SpaceX is targeting a T0 liftoff at 7:01. Again, this being our first daylight Falcon 9 launch since July 1st, if you can believe it, when the Euclid mission was launched on behalf of the European Space Agency. Now T-minus 30 minutes, 30 seconds and counting. T-minus 29 minutes, 36 seconds and counting. At this point, helium loading is also now underway to help pressurize the vessels on the first stage. Helium is important. It's used to pressurize the main propellant tanks during flight. And as we continue on toward the targeted liftoff of this Falcon 9 rocket, let's talk a little bit about where it's going and chat about some trajectories, shall we? This is a satellite view of Space Launch Complex 40, where the rocket will launch from tonight over at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. This Falcon 9 will fly in a southeast trajectory towards the Caribbean. Following stage separation, the first stage will land on one of SpaceX's 3 drone ships. On deck tonight is a short fall of gravitas. The upper stage will then continue on with the Starlink satellites. The fairing halves will jettison a bit downrange of this map as well. SpaceX using its other East Coast recovery vessel to scoop up these fairing halves. They're using Doug for this operation, as Bob was hard at work this morning supporting the recovery of the payload fairings from the Falcon Heavy launch supporting NASA's Psyche mission. So both recovery vessels named Bob and Doug after former NASA astronauts Bob Behnken, Doug Hurley, the duo, of course, of the Demo 2 mission from back in May of 2020. T-minus 27 minutes, 42 seconds and counting. T-minus 27 minutes and counting. Just taking a quick look at the live chat. I want to thank one of our channel members, Joshua Gennon. Apologies, Josh, if I'm mispronouncing your last name there, but thanks for offering some context for other Starlink missions. Mentions that the Group 7 shell of the Starlink constellation are currently being launched from Vandenberg Space Force Base. We're seeing the Group 6 shell launching from here on Florida Space Coast. Oh, good. Glad I got the last name right. Do my best. Make some misses, but always here for corrections if need be. Now T-minus 25 minutes, 55 seconds and counting. At this point, cryogenic helium now going to be loaded onto the storage tanks for the second stage. That process beginning at about 30 seconds or so. We're just a little over 5 minutes away from the start of the big vent from the strong back. T-minus 24 minutes, 20 seconds and counting. I want to thank one of our channel members, Josh King, for $10 super chat donation. Really appreciate the support, Josh, for both the super chat as well as continuing on with channel membership. Says, go Falcon Heavy, go Falcon 9. Yes, it has been quite an eventful double launch day for SpaceX here from Florida's Space Coast. Saw the successful launch of the Falcon Heavy, and hopefully the Falcon 9 will see just as much success this evening, coming up in 23 minutes, 45 seconds from now. Now T-minus 23 minutes, 23 seconds and counting. This particular booster, as you can see, it's got a good bit of character on it with quite a bit of soot, as this is the 14th flight coming up for this particular booster, tail number B1067. Before the start of the big vent, let's go ahead and talk about the flight history of this booster, as it made its debut back on June 3rd, 2021, supporting the CRS-22 mission. It sent more than 7,300 pounds of science and supplies up to the orbiting outpost, along with a pair of rollout solar arrays. This was the second mission under SpaceX's Commercial Resupply Services 2 contract with NASA. Next up, it made another Dragon launch. This was its first human mission, supporting the Crew 3 astronauts heading up to the space station on November 11th, 2021. That was followed up by the third launch just over a month after that on December 19th, 2021, with the Turksat 5B launch. This booster flew for a fourth time on April 27th, 2022, supporting the astronauts of the Crew 4 mission. Crew included NASA astronaut Jessica Watkins, who became the first black woman to serve a long-duration mission in space. This was also the debut of the fourth and so far newest Crew Dragon spacecraft that the crew named Freedom. On July 14th, 2022, the fifth flight of this booster with another cargo Dragon mission. On deck for that one, CRS-25. More than 5,800 pounds of supplies and science went up to the space station on that mission. Next up, Flight 6 was this booster's first Starlink mission. This was Starlink Group 4-34 on September 19th, 2022. Launch number 7 was the geostationary satellite Hotbird 13G for the company Eutelsat. That launched on November 3rd, 2022. Its final launch of last year was on December 16th with the launch of SES's O3B mPOWER 1 and 2 satellites. Rolling on into this year, missions 9 through 11 were all Starlink launches. That included Starlink 5-2 on January 26th, 5-5 on March 24th, and 5-9 on May 14th. 12th flight for B1067 came on June 18th when it launched Zeteria, a communications satellite for the Indonesian company PSN. And finally, and most recently, back on August 17th, this booster launched supporting the Starlink 6-10 mission. Again, getting ready to make its 14th flight, T-minus 20 minutes, 20 seconds, and right on cue, see the start of the big vent. T-minus 19 minutes and counting. Big vent, a good visual indication that fueling remains on track for SpaceX to launch this mission at 7:01 p.m. Taking a quick look at our live chat here. Want to thank Marcus Gallegos for your $5 super chat donation. Really appreciate that, Marcus. Thank you so much. Saying we wish for another successful launch, and so do we here. And want to thank SG. Welcome you back with another $5 super chat donation. With what is still one of my favorite little YouTube super chat emojis, the fox. I think we settled on that. That's a fox in a kimono. Little thumbs up. Good job there. Really appreciate that. Thanks for coming back and joining us again this evening, SG. One of our regulars on live launch coverage. Now T-minus 17 minutes, 48 seconds and counting. And certainly want to thank the 2,700 of you that are also joining with us live tonight. If you haven't already, great way to help support our coverage is quick and easy. If you just hit the like button, it allows for more folks to find it using the YouTube algorithm. More engagement helps the live coverage get boosted and more folks pop in. So we're now just about 17 minutes away from SpaceX's second launch of the day. T-minus 16 minutes, 58 seconds and counting. Appreciate Mel Roberts Harold with another $5 super chat, saying she had to log off for a minute. Sorry you missed the call out last time. Here's your call out again. Thank you, Mel, for helping to support our coverage here. Super chat donations are important because they're allowing us to get closer to the process of upgrading our equipment here, so that we can bring 4K launch views for all of our mission coverage. And that goes a long way toward that goal. So thank you to everyone who helps with channel membership or by making a super chat donation. And thank you to everyone who's just joining us tonight. Really appreciate you taking some time on a Friday evening to be with us. And we're happy to provide live launch coverage for you. Now T-minus 16 minutes, 2 seconds and counting, seeing the tapering off of the big vent. At this point, liquid oxygen will start flowing aboard the second stage currently. Now T-minus 13 minutes. We're about 6 minutes away from the start of the chill down of the 9 Merlin engines on the Falcon 9 rocket. Now T-minus 11 minutes, 23 seconds and counting. I want to thank Rick Donner for being a channel member as well as the $5 super chat. Asking, is the Strongback now painted black and not white for the Strongback that's used here at pad 40? I'm not sure that it's actually painted at all, this one. I think it's just the color of the metal. Don't know if there's a more significant story to the color of the transporter erector over at Launch Complex 39A. There very well may be, but I actually don't know the answer to that query, Rick. That's a good question, though. See if we can look into that and maybe include that tidbit for an upcoming launch. So thanks for giving us something to look into. Really appreciate that. Also want to thank John Petroviak for a $5 super chat. Thank you so much, John, for the support. Saying, just moved here to the Space Coast. This will be my 3-year-old son's first launch. Keep up the great coverage. Well, that is fantastic. Glad you guys are able to enjoy that. And hopefully we're able to see the Falcon Heavy launch this morning, because that was quite spectacular, especially for those of us here on the Space Coast, getting treated, of course, to not just a daylight Falcon Heavy launch, but also the return of the 2 side boosters with quite impressive sonic booms on their way back in. And lastly, I want to thank Babs Hill for $3 super chat donation. Thank you so much for helping to support our coverage. Now T-minus 9 minutes, 19 seconds and counting. We are less than 2 minutes away from the start of the chill down of the 9 Merlin engines. That's coming up at T-minus 7 minutes. Now T-minus 6 minutes, 53 seconds and counting. A chill down sequence is underway. SpaceX continues to progress towards a liftoff at 7:01 p.m. tonight. SpaceX did note earlier in the count that systems on the rocket were looking good. Weather currently cooperating is a go on the weather side for launch, as we are now T-minus 5 minutes, 30 seconds and counting. Now T-minus 5 minutes to liftoff. On board this Falcon 9 are 22 Starlink V2 mini satellites. This will be the 26th launch of these V2 minis, as well as the 46th launch supporting a Starlink operation in 2023. Now T-minus 4 minutes, 5 seconds and counting. The strongback retract should be underway. You can see those clamp arms opening there. Now T-minus 3 minutes and counting. As the sun continues to set here on the Sunshine State, getting ready to launch SpaceX's second mission of the day, that Falcon 9. Fueling continues to move along well. You see those payload fairings with the 22 Starlink V2 mini satellites on board. Those payload Now T minus
Stage 2 LOX load complete.
1 minute, 34 seconds and counting. So hear that call out for stage 2 LOX loading complete.
Ground gas closeout, so started.
Falcon 9 now fully fueled with 1 million pounds of propellant. That venting you're seeing is the purging of the strong back propellant lines coming up, preparing for a launch in T minus 1 minute. $50 seconds.
Falcon 9 in startup.
We should call for go for launch in just a few seconds from the launch director.
LD, go for launch.
And we hear that call out that this Falcon 9 is go for launch. And we are now officially past the point at which this mission scrubbed the last time they tried to launch. Less than 20 seconds remaining in the count. And here we go. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4,
15 seconds.
3, 2, 1. Ignition.
T minus 10.
And
9,
liftoff.
8.
Liftoff
7,
of this
6,
Falcon 9 rocket,
5,
launching
4,
SpaceX's
3,
second mission
2,
of the day,
1.
sending up
Ignition.
22 Starlink
Engine full
V2
power
mini
and
satellites.
liftoff of Starlink. Go Starlink, go Falcon. Vehicle's pitching downrange.
FT plus 46 seconds into flight. Getting some great views from Pete Carson's on his tracking camera of the Falcon 9 rocket soaring through the clouds.
Power and telemetry nominal.
FT plus 1 minute, 13 seconds into flight.
Vehicle supersonic.
Falcon 9 rocket traveling faster than the speed of sound. Coming up
Max
to
Q.
max Q, the point of greatest aerodynamic pressure on the vehicle. Now a minute 30 seconds into flight. Coming up on the MVAC chill down at T plus 1 minute 45 seconds. Some great tracking views. This one from Pete Carson's, as well as our Adam Bernstein, who is bringing us some views here from the ground at NASA's Kennedy Space Center press site. Now 2 minutes into flight. Approaching the point of main engine cutoff, or MECO. The Merlin engines will shut down. Will be followed shortly thereafter by stage separation and ignition of the upper stage. Jettison of the payload fairing comes next. At T plus 2 minutes, 16 seconds into flight. And there you see MECO. Will be followed by stage separation. And that Merlin vacuum engine will come to life.
Stage separation confirmed.
And you see that stage separation on Pete's tracking camera here. Little fuzzy just because of the clouds, but here's the onboard views from SpaceX. On the right-hand side, the Merlin vacuum engine. On the left, the Falcon 9 first stage booster with those titanium winglets now starting to deploy as the rocket begins its journey back down toward Earth. You can see the speedometer and the altitude there on the left-hand side at the bottom of the corner. Payload.
Fairing separation confirmed.
And with those payload fairings now gone, the V2 mini satellites exposed to the vacuum of space for the first time, you can see actually a little dot of those payload fairings making their way back down, turning back towards Pete's live view here. You can actually see the sunlight glistening off of those payload fairings. One of the benefits of having a sunset launch is you can see a lot of great reflection off of all parts of the Falcon 9 rocket. No T plus 4 minutes, 5 seconds into flight. Coming up at T plus 6 minutes, 8 seconds into this mission, we'll hear the call out for the entry burn beginning. Again, as a reminder, our countdown.
Both vehicles are on nominal trajectory.
Our countdown clock is a little bit ahead of SpaceX's. That's because they're on a slight delay with this broadcast. Our countdown clock is in real time. No T plus 4 minutes, 54 seconds, and counting into this flight. The first stage booster has passed its point of apogee, the highest point of its flight, the altitude now starting to decrease.
Acquisition of signal, Bria.
Less than a minute that entry burn will begin. You'll see the vehicle slow down dramatically when that happens. This is SpaceX's second launch of the day, but it'll be its third booster landing on the day as well. As we saw 2 boosters from the Falcon Heavy make a return to landing site landing. This particular booster will land in the Atlantic Ocean on the drone ship A Short Fall of Gravitas. It'll make that touchdown about 8.5 minutes into flight. Again, the entry burn will begin in just a few seconds in real time. Take a look at SpaceX's count-up clock at the bottom of the screen. It'll begin about T plus 6 minutes, 8 seconds.
Stage 1 FTS has safed.
Stage 1 entry burn startup.
And you see that burn begin. Rocket essentially slamming on the brakes, helping to slow its entry back down toward that drone ship. You can see the speedometer dropping very quickly. Meanwhile, the second stage continues to climb up
Stage 1
FTS has safed.
into orbit.
Stage 1 entry burn shut down.
This is the conclusion of the entry burn. On the right-hand side of your screen, though, you see the Merlin vacuum engine continuing its burn, now 7 minutes into flight. In the next 30 seconds, we'll hear a call out that the stage 1 is transonic, meaning it is moved below the speed of sound. The landing burn will begin at T plus 8 minutes, 4 seconds. So just a little over a minute, or a little under a minute away from now.
Stage 1 transonic.
You hear that call out? Stage 1 now transonic.
Nominal trajectory.
Now landing burn will begin in less than 10 seconds on the SpaceX feed. It's already underway in real time. Now T plus 8 minutes, 17 seconds.
Stage 1 landing burn.
I hear the call out, and you can see it on the left-hand side of your screen. Views from the drone ship should be coming up on the right-hand side where you see the Merlin vacuum engine currently. There we go.
Stage 1 landing leg deploy.
And touchdown of this booster for the 14th time.
Stage 1 landing confirmed.
You can see a little bit of blue of the sunset there.
Terminal guidance.
MVAC shutdown.
Expect to loss of signal, Cape.
And you hear the call out for MVAC shutdown. That is the second stage engine cutoff on the timeline, SECO 1. The Falcon 9's upper stage will remain in this coast phase until T plus 53 minutes, 58 seconds and counting as we take a look back at a fortunately empty pad as SpaceX has been able to successfully launch for a second time today, notching launches from both of its pads here on the Space Coast of Florida. Now T plus 9 minutes, 42 seconds into flight. With a successful launch today for the second time, let's take a look at the updated mission stats of where this particular mission happens to fall in line for SpaceX. As I mentioned, this was the 14th flight of this booster, tail number 1067. This was the 263rd Falcon 9 launch to date, the 69th Falcon 9 launch of 2023. This was the 207th Falcon booster reflight. Flights of both reused Falcon Heavy side boosters as well as Falcon 9 boosters. This was SpaceX's 73rd orbital launch of 2023. The 88th Falcon launch of both Falcon 9, Falcon Heavies in the last 365 days. It was the 148th launch for SpaceX from this particular launch pad, just like 40 over at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. It was the 203rd overall orbital launch from this pad, and it was the 57th orbital launch from Cape Canaveral in 2023, counting both Cape Canaveral Space Force Station as well as NASA's Kennedy Space Center. We saw both sites very much in action throughout the course of today. Long action-packed way to start the weekend. Before we go ahead and wind things down, I want to pop back over to our live chat. I want to thank a few more folks here. Scrolling back up because I know I missed some as we were getting close to liftoff. So thank you to Thomas Bieber for your $10 super chat donation, as well as IMB Racewear for your £2 super chat donation. One of our newer channel members who's been joining us regularly, Carrie Rencher, thank you for your $1 super chat donation and for continuing with channel membership. Let's see, I know there were a couple more. Or maybe just the one more. Alrighty, from SG, another $10 super chat donation with a superhero flying pear emoji. Thanks again, SG. Really appreciate your support. And for everyone who's been joining us for our live coverage throughout the day today, now T plus 12 minutes, 58 seconds and counting into this flight. Again, though, because SpaceX not providing trajectory or live views from their Starlink missions or mission audio, we're going to go ahead and wrap up our live coverage for this evening. Been a long day for our crews. and really appreciate you helping to be with us for all of it. If you happen to catch both launches, or if you were just here with us tonight, really appreciate you spending part of your Friday with us. Quick thanks to Mel Roberts Harold for a $3 super chat donation, supporting our coverage once again. So thank you for everyone who has chipped in with the super chats tonight. Really appreciate that. Such a big help in supporting what we do here, as well as all of our wonderful channel members for helping support our coverage, our ever-expanding coverage of the Space Coast, as well as the space industry. There's a lot to wrangle these days. Appreciate you helping us keep going on that front. And again, we'll be working towards replays of the launches today coming up on our channel in the near future, as well as lots of great activities coming up here on the Space Coast and on our channel here on YouTube. Looking towards next week, of course. Likely another Starlink launch from this pad here at Space Launch Complex 40 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. SpaceX turning around the pad about every 4 days or so. That transporter erector should be coming upright in the next several minutes, part of their process of turning around this pad more quickly. And of course, we do have one more Falcon Heavy launch on tap for this year. That'll be the USSF 52 mission on behalf of the U.S. Space Force, a classified mission. Be sure to keep you posted as we learn more details about both the payload, as much as we are able to suss out for a classified mission, as well as exactly when it will launch. That will, of course, go off from Launch Complex 39A. Which was quite busy earlier today. Now a little more quiet. And next week we should also be hearing from the astronauts who will be flying aboard the Axiom 3 private astronaut mission up to the space station. That mission launching early 2024 aboard a SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket on another Crew Dragon flight. The mission will be commanded by a familiar face, Michael Lopez Alegria, who will be making his second trip up to the space station as a private astronaut representing Axiom Space. So again, we'll wind down our coverage here. Be sure to keep tabs on our social media channels on X and Threads for further updates on this mission, for confirmation of deployment of the 22 Starlink V2 mini satellites. And just quickly before I miss it, want to thank Lioness for Paws for $10 super chat donation. Really appreciate that as we go ahead and wrap things up for the weekend. So for all of us here at Spaceflight now, for Stephen Young, Adam Bernstein, Michael Kane, Emil Robinson-Smith, thank you all for joining us for a very busy launch day, but a fun one to be with you all. Lots more to come. So be sure to subscribe to Spaceflight now if you haven't already. Ring the notification bell so you get alerted every time we go live. And we will see you next time. No, he just went ahead and signed off, but before we go, want to add a little PS and thank Pete Carsons for providing some great tracking views for us tonight, as well as earlier this morning on the Psyche mission. So busy day for all of us here at Spaceflight now and for our wonderful contributors helping us out. So thank you, Pete, this morning for an early morning and for a busy evening. And with that, we will once again bid you adieu. Thanks for being with us. See you next time.